Earlier this year, Joe Gow released his fourth album, The Excellent Between Tonight and Tomorrow. Then he set out on a tour of his homeland, Aotearoa New Zealand, with compatriot Kerryn Fields, and they released the song Your Heart of Gold. There will be more releases from the pair, but Matt has also returned to the title track of his album and recorded a different, remarkable version of the song, plus some remixes for a new EP, Closer to Tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to him about this project. Hi, Matt.
Hi, I'm looking forward to that. We've conversed a little bit over email and message, and you're so attentive and thorough when it comes to listening and reviewing stuff. So this is an honor.
It's an honor for me as well, because as I said to you before we started recording, the reprise version of this song, which is the new recording, I just don't think I'm ever going to get over. There are certain songs I never get over. I'll be listening to them forever. They're going to break my heart forever. This is one of them. But I'm going to start on a different note with actually a question about your time in New Zealand, because you won the MLT Songwriting Award for Whirlwind, which is an unreleased track, or thus far unreleased. You actually had 3 songs up for that award, I think. So the odds were good that you were going to win, but did you think this would be the one that would win?
Yeah, so for people listening, that's like the New Zealand Country Music Awards. Well, they're called Country Music Honours now. I think they renamed it, but it was held in Gore, so it's kind of similar to Tamworth in that respect. It's like the hub for country music in New Zealand. And you're right, we were nominated. I was nominated for Whirlwind. Kerryn was nominated for a song called Prairie Song, and we were nominated together for a song called Love You Like I Can. All 3 songs will eventually appear on the Joe Gow and Kerryn Fields record, but so that we could like get a few entries in, we put them under our own names, which is true because I did write Whirlwind and she did write Prairie Song, but we certainly didn't expect to be nominated for all 3. We thought we might get one through. So that was, first of all, a surprise. And I really, did you ask me, did I expect that one to win? No, I didn't. In fact, we'd had such a good time. It was this wonderful backstage vibe, rather than an award show where you sit in the crowd and you walk up to get your award and you go back down and nobody really interacts with anyone else. All the artists were backstage. So Fanny Lumsden was there, Jenny Mitchell was there, Mel Parsons, Delaney, Kerryn, all these wonderful, wonderful artists who I've been fortunate enough to meet, most of them through touring or even online. So we just all hanging out, and there was a really good atmosphere. So we all played, performed, and I think at that point when they announced it, I'd gone back to the dressing room to sort of pack up. I wanted to get away before all the traffic and crowds and stuff. And Kerryn was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, packing up." And they're like, "Oh, you should come out here." And I'm like, So I really did not think that would happen. I don't know why. I just was like, well, we've kind of done our thing. And then, yeah, they said my name, and it was one of those moments where you're like, "Oh, okay, this is cool." I really didn't expect. I think also because I played first,
right,
on the night, so it was like right at the start of the night, and I'm like, okay, that's done. If anything, I thought it would have been the "Love You Like I Can" song, which Kerryn and I, which will be our next single, which is a really, real foot tapper. But yeah, it's a wonderful honor. It's always nice to be recognized. I'd be the first to say that competitions in art, they always make me a little bit uncomfortable, but it helps, publicity wise, it helps, and you got to use any advantage you can these days. So I'll take it.
Well, it's also good to test yourself, I guess, against whatever else is out there. I understand what you mean about competitions being a little bit odd because it's a subjective decision to choose a song, but there are objective elements to that decision. Yeah,
of course, and there are a bunch of great songs, a bunch of great artists. Was Whirlwind any better than any of the others? I mean, who's to say? But ultimately, on the night, they chose that song, and like I said, I'm thankful for that. I think For me, I think because the song itself is about breaking the cycle of generational family violence, and I thought it might be a bit heavy, but it was the song I happened to write because Kerryn had already written Prairie Song, and I'm like, that's a damn good song, and which is a good thing about us. We sort of like push each other. So I'm like, I really need to come up with something good, and I guess the way to generally make sure of that is to write something honest, and that way you've at least been authentic in what you're trying to deliver.
I'm still quite entertained at the idea of you thinking you're going to get out early and beat the traffic, though. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a war night. No.
Kerryn, no, she was like, get out here. I was like, oh yeah, all right. Yeah. It was pretty funny actually, because then I had to race from like the dressing room out, round the back, out to the stage. Yeah, pretty funny. It was a fun night because my friend Delaney Davidson and Tammy Nielsen, Willie Nelson, they won for us their song, and I'm touring with Delaney up your ways, Sydney ways on September 8th. So yeah.
You have at least a couple of dates with him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we're playing together Sep 8 Sydney, Sep 9 in Melbourne, and I also play some other shows around New South Wales. They'll be on the websites, but yeah, it's great interacting with all these different artists, and I have a show with Brad of Copperline, who you've chatted with. It's great to just keep collaborating and connecting with these other artists.
And collaboration is what you're doing with Kerryn, of course, because you released Your Heart of Gold. You were on tour together. It was quite an extensive tour. Like there were quite a lot of dates.
It's still going in a way because we just got home from Adelaide, South Australia, sorry, and that's still part of the Your Heart of Gold tour. So we've just got one more show, and then that's 30 or so shows. And then that's that single. I mean, we definitely got every bit out of that single. And then the second single, yeah, it's October, which I believe I'll be chatting with you about because our publicist just sent us an email. I'm like, love Sophie, so that's cool. Yeah.
Did your interpretation of that one song change as you were playing it throughout the tour? Because you said almost 30 dates. So
of Your Heart of Gold. Yeah. Well, we recorded a couple songs that we felt would be a good potential first single, and that one came out on top. And listening back, I'm glad we did. But I mixed the song really like. It's going hard to get it done in time. This was all a push for time. We were on tour. Kerryn was editing the video, so I'm hearing the song back there. Every night we're singing the song. I think we did 10 dates in a row at one point, so I'm singing it 10 times in a row. So you can't help but get a little bit like, okay, But then we got back to Australia, and I think we had a week or two off from the New Zealand tour dates. And so we played it the other day in Melbourne and playing it in South Australia to close the show. Wow. And I was thinking like, oh, this is a good song. Like I can see why people like this. It's got a great vibe. And I think that it's actually got a little bit more weight than, you might just be like, oh, this is kind of sweet and breezy, but I think it still, has poignant elements, certainly in the bridge. The reveal, and it takes you back to that nostalgia and feel like a child again and stuff like that. I really like when it gets to the bridge. So, and as you know, because you watch a lot of live music, 30 shows, the song develops. You kind of taken it to a new place, and that's always exciting.
I also wonder when you've recorded it in those circumstances. So you recorded that one song, you're working towards recording more with Kerryn.
Yeah.
Given that the song might have evolved over that time, are you tempted to re-record it?
Yeah, no, you're always. I'd rather record a live version because when we record a studio version, that's documented,
right? And
that is a moment in time. So I don't re-record things. That's my mentality. I know that my co-producer Andy sometimes is like, I really like to re-record, some stuff off 7 years because we didn't have a lot of money. We had small studios. We're sort of trying to. It was really hard to get it to sound how we wanted to. And now we have this really nice studio and a lot more experience. I think he's like, I can do it better now. But for me, I'm like, no, that's that moment though, and that's that moment we captured that. So yeah, I leave things how they are, but I can't help but sometimes hear it and go, I wish I'd done that. But that's the way it is.
Well, that's a good segue to talking about Between Tonight and Tomorrow, the song, because this is not a re-recording of the song. It's actually a different interpretation in one part, the reprise, which will be the single off the EP, and then there are the remixes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what the impetus was for the new EP.
Great question. Well, a couple reasons. We'd released Between Tonight and Tomorrow, and touring the song, a few of my dates were solo or trio, and so I'd strip it back to just me and an acoustic guitar, and rather try to make a sort of a song that paled in comparison by trying to hit the guitar the same way and pretend we had a drum kit. And I try not to do that. I'm like, we'll give people a different version. We don't have the drums and the bass. This is just me and a guitar. And it started to mold into that finger picking shape, which then changed the delivery of the vocals, and then we changed the instrumentation. Instead of electric guitar, we put Andy on a mandolin, and this new song was born out of that as a response to the fans, and who were really enjoying that. They were like, some of them on the tour had the album, and so they'd say, I want, where's it like that, like sound like that? And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like that. You're like, I want that version. So we sort of thought, okay, and I put it in the back of my mind. And then obviously my mother passed away, and I played that song at her funeral in that style, in the reprise style, and so it was finger picked and guitar and mandolin. And I thought it would be nice to dedicate that song to her, and the EP to her, because I believe the first time I played the song live was to her. In fact, it was. So that was sort of like a little gift that I gave her. So the song has a lot of sentimental myself, and so if I could, just be artistic and creative, I wanted to just do it for myself, really. I had no, there was no thoughts that it was going to do really well on radio or something. It's a slow, introspective song, so it wasn't trying to be some single. But I love that about EPs. You can be more creative because it's not an album. You don't have a publicist saying like, how am I going to push this? So you can bend the rules a bit. And in doing that, I thought, well, if we're going to bend the rules, we might as well bend them even more. And I'll do some electronic remixes as well. While we're bending the rules, we might as well full bend the rules. Because I wouldn't, I'm not an electronic artist. I wouldn't release albums of electronic music. So this was just a good avenue to be able to release these songs, and hopefully people will find something they enjoy on the EP.
You mentioned playing the song at your mother's funeral, and the reprise version does have the quality of a hymn, I think. When I was listening to it the first time, but also continuing to listen to it, it can change shape, the song, upon repeating listening.
Well, the song's now about her, right? So that's the difference. So the delivery in the original was not about her, right? It was about an individual who's lost and trying to find, and sort of the irrationality in that state that can come to us all, and then that moment late at night between tonight and tomorrow where where you have to try and hold on and get through that. So, but then the song kind of became her song. So then the delivery on this reprise is very much sung for her. So perhaps that's what you're picking up on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When did you write the song?
Geez, what are we, 2023? I wrote it at the start of lockdown, so 2020. Yeah. And did we release the record 2022? When did I release the record? Did I release it this year?
You did. you had a bit of music out this year, so yeah, this year.
It's maybe 2020, 2021. I had it for a little while. And I think that, but writing the song, I wasn't performing it. I'd just written it, because I was sort of backlogged for record. And then the pandemic just made that even worse. So then it all got extended out. But it's just one of those songs. Every artist has a few, and it's not really about them necessarily being hits or anything like that. I don't even know if that exists anymore for Americana artists, but some songs just connect. You can't really predict what they're going to be, and they're not necessarily singles. I have a song off my second album called Georgia Rose that was never a single, that's constantly asked for at shows. I have a song called I Let You Be off my first album that's constantly asked for at shows. So neither of I Let You Be was a single, but a late single off the record. So you just never really know. And I think with Between Tonight and Tomorrow, it was the same thing. I wasn't really sure how people would react to it, but there was such a great response. So yeah, I think people will enjoy this reprise as you have.
I'm wondering also, because the lyrics are very tightly constructed. So I'm wondering, when you wrote it, did they come first, or was it the melody or the chords?
The chords came first, but I knew that we had something pretty powerful with that chord progression and in the style, because I've sort of talked about this with musicians. I play guitar a little unorthodox. I taught myself. And on that song in particular, I use a lot of down up stroke with the thumb. It's a little bit unorthodox, but it works really well for that initial that sort of tone and sound. So it's like my style helped create that part, and I'm like, oh, this is really good, this part. Like, I don't write these progressions every day. So then I felt a pressure to come up with poignant lyrics if I could manage that, and I also wanted lyrics that had a lot of space, so you could deliver them and then just and then deliver them and sit back, because there's not that many words in the song. I think there might be 4 lines, like 2 in each verse, and then the chorus. So I had to make the most of the lines that I had. Yeah.
Well, the idea of space, because I did think about the idea of space in relation to this song, because yes, there's space on the original recording. There's even more space on this one. The space is there for the listener to find themselves in, but it also functions like negative space in art, where you're asked to draw the negative space, not the actual object in front of you. And the idea being that the space is as important as the object, because you can put whatever you want, I guess, into that space, or you can project whatever you want to into that space.
Yeah, you learn that later as a musician or as a producer. You learn how important that space is and how it can lift up the lines you have, or the parts that you do have. The song itself was tracked live off the floor, so just playing and singing that at the same time, which is not really that common anymore. But we wanted to just, I guess, capture a performance. So yeah, we were just sat around, and I think 1 or 2 takes, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I played the song on tour for, if I couldn't get it right in a song, I'd be questioning my abilities, possibly. But
still, because you are a producer, I would think there's an element of self-criticism there, like just, getting it right. The idea of getting it right is different for you as a producer, perhaps, than as a performer.
Here's the irony to that, though. If you focus too much on getting it right, it'll sound like shit. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like if you go, need to focus on getting this so right, I guarantee it'll, you got to find the performance, and that's away from that pressure if you can, which is, that's the juggling act, right? That's the balance.
Yeah. I mean, related to the idea of space, I think is the use of the term "the in-between" in the lyrics. And I do think that's possibly a big element of why people relate to it. There are other elements in the song, but just the way you phrase that, it's simple, but it's incredibly effective, because the in-between, between tonight and tomorrow, then could be between past and present. It could be between last century and this century. There's different ways to interpret that for the listener.
Or where you possibly feel the night ended and the next day started, because it's not necessarily at midnight with what you feel. People often 1 a.m 2 a.m and people still say it's tonight, right? Well, it's now the next day. So where's that point where the day is changing, it's changing into the next day, and in that point is, can be that darkest hour where you're battling with comes to you, and that's kind of what the song is trying to comfort you and tell you to hold on through. So I try to, the song has an element of hope, I think.
Because the promise of tomorrow is there, but also just in thinking about what's happened in your life recently, the in-between could also describe grief. It's that period of stasis, almost, or limbo, if you want to use that term, between what you knew and what's coming.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's always, I think as a lyricist, you try to layer a few meanings, and I guess with that you cast a net, and that people can connect with it for their own interpretation of your lyrics. And I think good lyrics have, they can be somewhat esoteric, but in that you can find your own meaning if you do it, if you construct them well enough.
And you mentioned Andrew Pollock, who's your longtime collaborator, who played with you on the reprise recording. And I imagine he understands intrinsically what you need on a recording, perhaps because you've been playing together for so long, because there is a sense of alchemy on that recording that it's not like you can instruct someone else to do that for you.
Well, he flew over to the funeral to play the mandolin, just for that. So it says a lot about him as an individual. Yeah, we're like brothers, really. Like, I don't know what it is, 15, 16 years, we've known each other a long time. And these days, outside of sort of the big event like birthdays and things like that, but it's really, we just sort of come together in a musical space. That's sort of where we mainly communicate. And we definitely, I mean, there's so much on that recording that we don't talk about because we just assume that this and this will be this, and the tone will be this, and the room mics will be this, and I'll do this, I'll sing in this style, you'll play here, and that's all sort of assumed. I think that mix was really quick. Like we tracked it and then it was mixed very quickly. Again, it's hopefully all in the performance. I think you do all the work there, and then you track yourself when you sing it live anyways, because there's nothing you can do. So if it's too loud or too quiet or needs auto tuning and all that sort of stuff, you can't. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't, because it's all through the one mic.
In thinking about your other recordings, the song that came to mind actually was the version you did of Kate Bush's "Running Up That Hill," because that's a very different interpretation of that song. It's very much your interpretation of it, and I think it involved, my listening of it involved a process of recreating the song almost, so that it made sense for you as an artist. So in thinking about remaking Between Tonight and Tomorrow, I'm wondering if there was a sense for you almost of approaching it as a cover. So like, how do I come at this in a different way?
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about, because you go down the road of an Americana artist and you're so used to picking up your guitar and you go, oh, the drums will go here, the bass will go here, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's your bread and butter. But then there are some songs that I've had in the past that you think, I wonder how this would have sounded, delivered a little bit differently. Maybe not to the extent of the remixes, but certainly with different instrumentation. And you think, I wonder how that would have gone. Mm-hmm. And I guess with this song, it was my engineer, Chris, he sparked it, and he was like, I guess to take it back, this is the one song when I came into the studio between Tonight and Tomorrow, and my drummer and my engineer and co-producer, they were like, that's the song, that's a great song. So there was sort of that energy. And then when Chris, he's like, I really love this song, I think that we should remix it. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. So that's where it started. And it was an opportunity for me. I have a relatively varied taste, and we sort of went down that Massive Attack, 90s trip hop Bristol sound. And it just was an opportunity with the remixes to try different things. I think the emotion comes from the strings on that remix. They're really emotive. I think there's so much space, you can actually hear the lyrics better in some ways. Because we often mix on the original version, we mix to sound like a band in a room, right? And obviously a band in a room, the vocals are there with all the stuff. But on a remix, you can kind of go, vocals are here, strings are here. And that's one of the benefits of electronic music. I'm not trying to sell you the concept of 4 people playing their guitars in front of you. It's different. So there's different rules, and I think we utilize those rules to give sort of a sonic space to the instruments that you don't have on the original. So like the solo, like you can hear all the delay on the guitar much better actually. And yeah, like I said, the vocals as well. So yeah, I think like, I'm an Americana artist, and it was opportunity to bring those songs out off the back of the acoustic reprise. So hopefully someone with varied taste like myself will stumble across them and enjoy them. That's really all that they're for. That's all that they're for. Just maybe someone will like them, and there might even be someone who likes that stuff more than the stuff I usually do. That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, and they are different to each other, the two remixes. One's quite ambient, the other one's a bit more brassy, for lack of a better term.
One of them's kind of that 80s, almost like a Phil Collins-esque the song, right? Like In the Air Tonight type vibes, yeah.
But in talking about the vocal being quite prominent in those mixes, I remember when I spoke to you about the album earlier in the year, and you were saying that for the recording of the album, your voice was actually brought a lot more forward than it had been on previous records. It was more about you and your harmonica and your guitar, and I guess that's a necessary process to get to your voice being more prominent on these remixes for you as an artist to think, yeah, I'm here now, I'm right at the front.
Yeah. My last record, Break, Rattle and Roll, we consciously, I want to say buried the vocals, but they're definitely lower than most modern recordings. But they're not lower than the Stones. We sort of set the level to about where Mick Jagger's vocals are, surprisingly low on Exile and Main Street, stuff like that. So, and we had to do that because the concept was to have a record with a lot of stuff. And you just can't have a lot of stuff and then a vocal over the top. It just sounds juxtaposed. It doesn't work. So we needed to have us all kind of, again, sound like a whole bunch of people all, making noise together. And then with Between Tonight and Tomorrow, obviously that was more centered around myself and my acoustic guitar with the band a little bit further behind me, to try and deliver something different, and I think it just served the songs better. So yeah, you're right, we took it a step further with the reprise, stripped it back even more, I think that allows the vocal to shine, and it's a really close mic approach, slightly different vocal approach as well, like a hymn or a lullaby, perhaps.
Do you think you now have a different relationship with this song and perhaps even with your voice after recording the reprise version in particular?
Well, I feel like it's a chapter closed now. And we didn't really know when to do it. Obviously, as we've just talked about, I've got a lot of releases with Kerryn and just released my record a few months ago. But Andy and Chris and myself, we really wanted to get these songs out there and, make sure they got what they deserve and are heard by people. So I think it's a chapter closed on the song and on that period of my life. And an opportunity to pay tribute to my mother, the person who really was instrumental in my career and started it all for me. So I think it was a fitting.
And to bring it back to where we started, to talking about your collaboration with Kerryn Fields, I'm interested for you as a songwriter, because you write quite a lot. When you're coming up with songs now, are you thinking that's for that project, or are you still keeping a few things for yourself? Is it hard to tell the difference these days?
You ask good questions, so I got to say, so you are really good. That's a great question, and I can answer it really specifically because Kerryn and I have discussed this. I write to briefs, so I find it easier with set directions. I think she writes more like she just writes and then kind of, it's not like she doesn't write to, she said herself that she was sort of inspired by the way that I do that. We sort of approach things differently, and she is writing for her record, but even if she wasn't, I know her, she just writes. Whereas I'll write and say, right, okay, so Fleur needs this, and so I'm going to write in this fashion with her. And then Kerryn, we need an upbeat song. Get my guitar, write an upbeat song. And my record needs it. So I work better in that way. That's not to say I do that all the time. Sometimes just you expressing whatever comes out, and then you can find out a place for it later. And we've all had songs that sit around for a long, long time. But lately, and in the last few years, I prefer writing to a brief. And I find that prevents my songs getting backlogged because I've got a direct avenue to be released. Like, I wrote a song called Too Far to Go with the Weeping Willows. I wrote that song 15 years ago. Now. It was released a couple years ago with them, but it just sat around and it annoyed the shit out of me because I'm like, this is a good song. I couldn't find a place for it until I worked with them. And so I try to avoid that, because otherwise these songs, they build up, you're like, and they're chatting in your ear like, release me. I'm like, oh, get there. So now I'm just like, I write specifically.
So the Fleur you mentioned is Fleur Wyver, who released an album called Parramatta River, and you wrote with her on that, produced the album because you also produced for other people. And now what you said about you write to briefs makes me wonder how do you brief yourself? Because that's almost like a stepping outside of your own consciousness.
Yeah, interesting. I listened to the song she already had for the record, because I came on board later and I had a conversation with her. I said, I think your record needs this. She was like, okay. I said, send me some ideas, and we went back and forth. And I happened to be I was on tour and I was at Bradley's house from Copperline, and I was staying at his place in Manana.
Yeah.
He had a show, I think I was at Majors Creek Festival, something like that. And I stayed at his house, and he had an old piano. And so I was just sort of sitting there by myself, having a relaxing drink on tour by myself, as you do. and just playing the piano. And that's where that song Armour sort of really found its feet. She'd had the lyrics and some ideas, but I really fleshed it out there on that piano. So yeah, I mean, as I said, that was because I felt the record needed that. And with the Joe Gow and Kerryn Fields record, we were trying to find a last song, and I felt it needed to be here, and we'd sort of throw on things at it. She'd come up with songs and I'd come up with songs, but I'm like, right, I need to really write a song in kind of this style. So I guess luckily at this point in my career, I have enough of an understanding in how to sort of steer it in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm. But that does suggest that you are thinking of these as whole projects. It is therefore not just, here's a song and this is great and I will hold on to it for a while, or I'll slot it in somewhere. It's actually, this is a whole song cycle, or a whole big arc of a story.
That's right. Yeah, I write albums more than I write songs. I write songs for albums. I'll call it old fashioned, but that's just how I like to write. I don't write, be like being a novelist versus someone who writes short stories. So I like to see how it slots into a body of work. That's a really exciting part. And then, how that fits in with the artwork, and how that artwork fits in with your branding and the music video. So the whole thing is this sort of really exciting creative package. That's where I get the most joy from, I think.
And as you mentioned video, I will say, even though I said I was going back to the start, I'm deviating from that to go back to the single, because you have a video for it.
I do have a video coming out. Yeah, I think you've seen it, but I'm not sure if it might be out when right now when this is, but if not, it will definitely be out very soon on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you enjoy, it sounds like you do enjoy the video making process.
Well, yeah, it's interesting we chat about that just quickly, but the video was shot on Super 8mm film, which I love working with. I love film. And then edited by Kerryn. So Kerryn had said, you should make a music video to the song. And I'm like, I guess so. Yeah, we can shoot something. And she mentioned that footage. And I'm like, we don't have much footage because our camera broke.
Right.
So there's like literally 2 minutes of footage turned into like a 3.5 minute song with like slow-mo. Like that's using everything we had, all the effects. But what I love is like there are no effects on it. So it really fits the song. There are no effects on the camera. It's just the Super 8 footage, all the film burn and everything.
You're right.
We shot that for the original video, but then if you've seen the video to the original Between Tonight and Tomorrow, we got some extra footage in George Lane taken in one shot, and my editor was like, you should just use the one shot. That's really cool. So we ended up doing that. So then this footage was left over, and here we are with it being used for Between Tonight and Tomorrow reprise, which is why, the two, again, they kind of link, like I'm wearing and it's filmed on the similar time.
Yeah. So you like Beyonce banking your footage.
Yeah.
Beyonce's always filming. There's video, there's photos just stored in the archive ready for use.
Content for sure. But Super 8mm film's so expensive. I mean, I don't know how much of that I can bank, but I'm really glad that the video was that we're able to release it. I didn't think we'd have enough. I thought we'd just do a visualizer or something with some slow effect looping. And Kerryn, with her magic, was like, I can make a video out of this. So I'm like, okay, which is really cool because like we work together on our project, but we help each other out with our own stuff as well. Like project and her solo project and stuff. So yeah.
Another great collaboration, like the one with Andrew Pollock.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really similar. Like if Andy and I are brothers, Kerryn and I are like brother and sister, it is a very similar dynamic in some ways, and then also like also really different as well, because Kerryn and I, we do like the same thing, so that's really interesting. I don't know if I've ever shared yeah, I've definitely had good friends, and I've already just mentioned them in this interview, who do the same thing, but I've not been in a collaborative project where I'm making an album.
Mhm.
This is something new for me. Yeah.
Well, that is your next project, although I'm sure there will be others weaving in and out of that project. And you'll also be doing some dates as a solo artist, which will be on your website, which you do keep updated regularly.
Yeah.
So, but people can prepare for those shows or just simply listen to the Closer to Tomorrow EP because it's wonderful. Congratulations, Matt, and great to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.